Welcome to another episode of Wild and Well. Today I'm talking to GAPS coach Emma Goodwin about GAPS, and we'll get into what that is here, gut health, and so much more. So, welcome, Emma. Thank you for coming on the podcast. But before we get into it, can you tell us one thing that you've done today to take care of you?
One thing I've done today, just today, not the last 25 years. Okay, just today. Well, I went out this morning and I got my bare feet on the grass in the morning sun with the facing east with the sun in my eyes so that the sun can come into my retina and activate the retinol, the vitamin A to synthesize the vitamin D. And I did some qigong, which is very lovely. It's sort of upper body, lots of arm work, lots of stretching out backwards. And when you've slept, and your shoulders have been all curled over, it's really lovely to just open up your chest and breathe deeply, get grounded. So that was something I did for 20 minutes this morning.
What a beautiful way to start your day.
Yeah.
So, can you share a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do in this GAPS world?
Okay. So I was once an exhausted mum with hyper kids. And I discovered GAPS, Gut and Psychology Syndrome, the Yellow Bible by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. I discovered that about 15 years ago. And I tried to follow the book. I tried to do it by the book. And I tried to do this nutritional protocol, reading a book and then trying to do the cooking. And I managed it a bit, but I was missing so many important factors and I didn't have any help. And I thought, as I was going through that, I thought, I need to make this accessible to all the exhausted mums with hyper kids. How many exhausted mums with hyper kids are there out there who need this? So I started to teach. I started with friends of mine who had multiple sclerosis and chronic fatigue and other ailments, so-called chronic ailments that the mainstream didn't seem to be helping with much. And I said, do you want to come round my house and the six of us will get together and I'll go through the principles of GAPS with you. So that was oh Lord, that was in about 2012. And it's just grown from there. So now I'm a full-time GAPS coach and I have an online cookery school and I help people all over the world where I show people all over the world how they can empower themselves with kitchen habits that are going to build their bodies of really strong stuff so they can become adaptable and resilient and kind of boingy, springy and boingy so they can spring back from life's stresses. So I'm a gut health specialist, cookery school teacher, but in my probably it's at least 10 years of practice now, but I've only been qualified as a GAPS coach officially for the last 5 years. But in all that time of practice, I've helped people with some outrageous chronic conditions like bleeding from the bowels, ulcerative colitis, FPIEs, failure to thrive when the baby can't actually drink its own mother's milk, blackened baby teeth when mamas have tried to bring up baby vegan. And I've helped vegans and vegetarians to find the way to actually enjoy eating meat again because their body's forgotten how to do it.
And can you tell us what GAPS is exactly? I think there'll be some listeners that are very familiar with it, and there'll be some that are thinking, GAPS, what? What's GAPS?
Yeah, I wish GAPS was a really well-known thing in the mainstream. It is very well known worldwide, and that book has been translated into 26 languages, and there are literally millions of people around the world who know about it, but somehow the mainstream hasn't really picked it up. There's all sorts of reasons that might be for, but we won't go into that. But um, it's basically a way of eating that we used to do before industrial agriculture and industrial food production came along. How did we used to eat before the dawning of the age of the refrigerator, for instance? I mean, I do use a refrigerator, but we're working with a lot of fermented foods. Fermented foods don't need a refrigerator. We're working with a lot of meats. We can marinate and ferment our meats. We can cook our meats and keep them. We don't necessarily need a refrigerator, you know. Um, these are ancient ways of preparing real food. That means meats, fish, poultry, raw dairy, and eggs, and organic vegetables, organic fruits that are in season, and honey. And basically, that's it. Basically, that's it. So we can use some nut flours to make baked goods like breads and pastries and cakes and things. I make a really nice red lentil bread actually, and a red lentil cake as well, which is full of cultured cream and eggs and spices and some dried fruit. But the base of it is red lentils because we're avoiding all grains on GAPS. We get off the grains completely, off the refined carbohydrates. We get off potatoes. We get off these complex carbohydrates whilst we are recolonizing the microbiome, because it's the microbiome that's causing a lot of the trouble with these chronic illnesses. What we're trying to do on GAPS is rebuild the broken microbiome and culture and cultivate this super biodiverse, resilient, strong microbiome, your gut bugs, so that you can basically withstand anything life throws at you. Even if somewhere some people might get food poisoning, if you've got a strong gut microbiome, that isn't going to happen to you. You can withstand the poisons in the environment that there are everywhere. So it's about avoiding putting the poisons in, avoiding vegetable oils, complex carbs, sugars, processed foods, eating real foods, and making it delicious, making it lush, making it tasty, it's a bit like French cuisine, actually.
Yeah,
GAPS.
it's amazing. It's just really good, real food, isn't it?
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
what are some signs that a child or an adult could benefit from taking more of a GAPS approach to their eating?
So who might benefit? Is that the question? Well, I like to say, do you eat food? If you eat food, you benefit from this. But everyone always says you have to niche down. You have to niche down and like go for your niche. It's like, well, anyone who is in perfect health doesn't need to do GAPS. But if you've got some kind of niggly, annoying symptoms, be that, oh yeah, I suffer from migraines, or oh yeah, I've got patches of eczema, or my child's a bit asthmatic or allergic, my child's a bit allergic. Allergy is a sure sign that the gut microbiome is broken, that the lining of the gut is not intact, that the mucosal membrane is not thick and strong and colonized with really good bacteria. So, the father of so called modern medicine, Hippocrates, supposedly said, if we can believe his story, the history that they tell us, um, Hippocrates supposedly said all disease begins in the gut. So if anyone's suffering with any kind of physical ailments, then GAPS is for you. Now, the book GAPS, Gut and Psychology Syndrome, is gut and psychology syndrome. So that's implying mental health problems. I suffered terribly with anxiety and depression in my late 20s, so much so that my whole life just ground to a complete halt. And now I understand that it was gut related. So, anxiety, depression, ADHD, all of these autistic spectrum disorders are gut related. That's where. So, GAPS is good for you name it. GAPS is good for it.
Yeah, so that pretty much does include everybody because who out there is in perfect health? Unfortunately, these days, they are the anomaly. It's the common, like the most common is that we are struggling with something, whether it's significant or minor.
Exactly. I mean, even fungal toenails, that's a message from the body. Warts, that's a message from the body. Dry eyes or crusty eyes when you wake up in the morning, it's a message from the body, something's out of balance. And generally speaking, it's all about minerals. we are mineral deficient to such a massive extent. And that's because of farming practices over the last 50 years that have depleted the minerals in the soil. It's also because of the use of stuff like glyphosate, which chelates minerals out of the soil to prevent weeds from growing, but it actually prevents then the plants being adequately furnished with minerals. And then if the plants are deficient, the animals are deficient. If the animals are deficient, we're deficient. You know, the soil's deficient, everything's deficient. We need to start really building beautiful mineral-rich soils, and we can do that. We can remediate and repair these broken soils, and then the veg will be better, the animals will be better, we'll be better.
And what do you recommend for us, for our families or ourselves to replenish our mineral stores? Is it through eating all these really nutrient dense foods that you were talking about earlier, or is there supplementation? Like, what do we do to start replenishing that in ourselves?
Well, Dr. Natasha, my guru who wrote the book GAPS, doesn't recommend that we go straight for supplementation because often these supplements are offered in a methyl cellulose capsule, which is high fiber, high plant fiber. And on GAPS, what we're doing is avoiding fiber because fiber feeds the microbiome. If the microbiome's full of pathogens, you'd be feeding the pathogens. So we avoid the fiber for a little while we're rebuilding the microbiome, and then we let the fiber back in. So these methyl cellulose capsules, that is to say, they're vegan friendly, but that doesn't mean human friendly. Not very good for our microbiome, not very good for our gut lining. So let's try to avoid taking supplements until the gut is mended at least a little, and then we'll have a much better absorption, and any supplements we do take will be much better absorbed. But there are some supplements which are food based. So, for instance, dried oysters. I help to distribute a product called Oyster Max, which is dried oysters. So if you don't live near the sea and you can't buy and shuck 6 oysters every day, you can take a couple of scoops of this dried oyster powder, which will give you your copper, your zinc in perfect ratio, bioavailable, give you your selenium, your iodine, also perfect ratio, bioavailable, amino acids and all the other minerals from the sea in that food supplement. We can take cod liver oil, jam packed full of vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K. These are so important. We can take beef liver. I mean, you can take beef liver capsules, but I actually like just to eat raw beef liver on a honey spoon. Not every day, but if I'm feeling a little bit low, I'll spend a week or two just having a tablespoon of raw beef liver every day on a honey spoon. That's my mineral rebalancing. Having said that, there's also a very interesting book called CU, which is the sign for copper in the periodic table. CU, your fatigue. So when you look at it, it says cure your fatigue, but of course, it doesn't say cure your fatigue because you're not allowed to say it cures anything because otherwise they come down on you like a ton of bricks. But in this book by Morley Robbins, he outlines how we've become mineral deficient and he talks about rebalancing minerals. It's a very interesting read. And he suggests we start by stopping any synthetic supplementation, eating an ancestral diet, which is basically GAPS, like GAPS. And then we start with upping our potassium. Now, you can get potassium from cream of tartar, which is actually a baking ingredient. Right, so we could use some lemon juice and cream of tartar, maybe a bit of bicarbonate of soda to buffer that lemon citric acid so that it's not going to damage the enamel on your teeth if you're sipping it, and have it in a litre of water with some sea salt. Sea salt, Celtic sea salt, is an amazing source of minerals, magnesium and all the other minerals under the sun, which are in the sea. So sea salt, cream of tartar, bicarb of soda, sodium bicarbonate, and lemon juice in a litre of water. That's a great electrolyte drink. I also like to take my eggshells when I've just cracked an egg, and I'll wash the eggshell under the tap, and then I'll put it on a baking tray, and then when the baking tray's full of 30 or 40 shells, I'll pop it in the oven when I'm baking something else and just sterilize them for 10 minutes and get them bone dry. Then I put them in a nice jar with a tight-fitting lid and pour lemon juice on top. And that citric acid will strip the calcium out of the eggshells and give you calcium citrate naturally, which isn't from some synthesized factory, you know. I'm sorry, I'll let you in a minute, but I keep on having these ideas I want to share with you. I was listening to a podcast the other day about pharmaceutical company. An Australian guy actually was employed by this pharmaceutical company, and they said to him, by 2020, the supplement arm of our business will be bigger than the pharmaceutical arm of our business. And that came true. So it was a pharmaceutical agency creating the supplements. So where are you going to get your supplements from? I like to get my supplements from whole food sources. So B vitamins are beef liver or brewer's yeast, and vitamin C is from citrus or sauerkraut, very high in vitamin C sauerkraut. And also they're jam-packed full of probiotics for you. So there are ways and means of remineralizing and getting your vitamins as well from whole food sources, not from supplementation. And remember, it's futile taking supplements if your gut microbiome is broken because you won't absorb them. They'll go straight through you. It's a very expensive way to, your pee pee and doo doo be very expensive. It just goes straight through you. Yeah.
So, with the GAPS approach, do we generally start with that rebuilding of the gut microbiome and the gut lining, and then think about introducing more of those minerals in, or this is happening simultaneously?
Well, the kingpin of the GAPS protocol is the stock pot. And I don't mean bone broth. I mean meat stock. It's very different. So if you're having 3 or 4 cups of meat stock every day, you're going to be getting lots of lovely minerals. You're going to be getting lots of lovely collagen and gelatin. You'll be getting lots of lovely amino acids. You can break an egg yolk into that stock like a creamer. Maybe add some ghee or a knob of butter and some more sea salt. I think I must eat at least a teaspoon of sea salt every day. So sea salt is an amazing source of minerals. So we start that straight away. You're immediately remineralizing when you start on GAPS. And then there's a certain order that you need to introduce things. Some people, for instance, I say, oh, it sounds as though you're really magnesium deficient, so we'll have a hot salt bath. That's another great way of remineralizing. But some people can't even stand sitting in a hot salt bath for 5 minutes. They start to get all agitated and over here, and their body's like, no, no, get me out of here. It's because their selenium's out of whack, which probably means their iodine's out of whack. So then, I'd say, oh, try a magnesium supplement, and it would make them feel violently sick. So we don't want to supplement until we've got the balance right, and that's probably, maybe you need a coach to work out how to do that.
Yeah, actually, right now on the stove, I'm making a chicken stock as we speak. So I thought that was really appropriate to be talking to you today while
Good
doing
work.
that. And it is such a lovely thing to bring into our daily lives. So I love that that's a starting place with GAPS. That's something that is doable because like I've read the book on GAPS, I've learned about it, and sometimes it does seem like there's a lot to it. So if we can just start with those really basic things, like starting by introducing a meat stock into your daily diet, that's so manageable, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And then when you cook your vegetables, you don't ever, ever use water. No, you use a big knob of tallow or lamb fat or goose fat, and then you put your veg in, and then you put in a few ladles of the stock. It's like French cuisine. And then you cook that, and then by the time you finish cooking it, all the stock has evaporated, and your vegetables are coated with this good fat and the lovely flavors of the stock. You finish that off with a nice big knob of butter and maybe some fermented garlic, maybe a sprinkle of herbs. It's like, boom. I could eat a plate of veg like that because it's got the animal fats in it. And it's got the stock, it's got the collagen, the gelatin. It's it's not a big meaty meal, but it's got all the essential ingredients for you to rebuild your body. Having said that, we do need a certain amount of protein, and a lot of people, I think, are not eating enough protein.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you work with people, what is the process? Like, where do you generally start? Is it with the stocks and then you assess where they might be lacking in minerals or like their mineral balance might be out of whack? What's the process?
Yeah, well, I generally, I like to meet on the Zoom so that I can see their faces and see their demeanor and see how they're sitting and see how they're talking and see how their thought processes are going. Because sometimes I'm talking to people and their thought processes are so slow. It's like they've gone on I don't know, they're winding down. And others are completely hyper and can't stop talking and talking really, really fast. So I like to meet them and see how they're feeling. I like to see the size of them. Do they carrying extra weight or are they super skinny or. And then I'll give them a plan of action. Take a history, work out what was their mother's pregnancy like with them. What was their mother eating while she was pregnant? What did they eat a lot of as a child? You know, did were they vaccinated? There's lots of questions. Did they have any childhood diseases? Where are the weaknesses in their body? And then, yes, we always start with the stock pot without fail. And then we'll tailor. So what are they already eating? Some people come to me and they're still eating breakfast cereals and Twinkies. Some people come to me and they've been doing GAPS for years and they seem to have got stuck and they just can't move forwards. And so then I'll be layering other therapies on top of the GAPS protocol, for instance, working with the root cause with Morley Robbins' Cure Your Fatigue, or working with specific amino acids, for instance. Because say someone's so brain fogged and scatty that they can't even, or they've got not even enough energy to go and chop vegetables and put on a stock pot. We need to do something else. So maybe I'm going to get them in front of an infrared lamp. Maybe I'm going to give them some full spectrum amino acids under the tongue 3 times a day. If they're anorexic or bulimic, maybe I'm going to give them a special blend of specific amino acids that are going to just remind their body that everything's going to be okay. Because these amino acids, which come from the stock pot, which you can also buy in powder form, they're actually the building blocks for the neurotransmitters in your brain, which give you your happy drugs. And if you haven't got your happy drugs and you feel lost and confused, and I mean, there was a time when I used to stand in my kitchen and go, "What am I doing? What have I got to do next? What's going on? Where am I?" The kids are distracting you. You're thinking about, "Oh God, have I got enough money to buy this?" And you just don't know where to start. Maybe taking something like, I'm not going to suggest anyone go out and do this, but maybe taking something like GABA or tryptophan or in the right order, and you should never do that if you've been on any kind of antidepressant drugs, right? Maybe that's just going to be that magic key that makes you go, okay, I can think straight for a minute. I'm going to put on the stock pot, which is a 5-minute job. But some people are even incapable of doing that. So it depends, it's everyone's different, and I need to just basically I just need to be quiet and listen to what they've got to say. And then I'll get some ideas, and then I go, okay, we're going to try this, we're going to try that. You've got 3 things to do this week. Just even if you only get one of them done, I'll be really pleased. And we take it from there. And just slowly but surely, step by step, mouthful by mouthful, they get over chronic thyroid issues and hormone problems and PCOS and interstitial cystitis and, vulvodynia and you name it. We definitely make inroads. I cannot claim that we cure anything, but people feel immensely better. Immensely.
How long do you find it takes once people start on this approach to start seeing improvements?
Well, that's a bit like saying, how long is a piece of string? Because, if you're talking about a non-verbal autistic child who only recently, we'll say that a 2-year-old who didn't have any vaccinations and then maybe they had a vaccination. This happened to me. And then suddenly their child changes somehow and they don't give you eye contact anymore. And you think, oh my gosh, there's something funny going on. What's happened here? You can work with them with gaps and see remarkably quick results because they're so young. Their little cells are replicating and they're growing so quickly that they're so adaptable and springy kids that it might seem like an insurmountable, impossible thing because maybe you've got a picky eater and you're thinking they would never eat that. But that's when I start working with the mums, on their own psychology to help them to say, yeah, they're eating new foods every day, whether they are or not, doesn't matter. You just got to tell yourself that, you know. So I forgot your question now. I've gone round in a little.
Oh, just wondering how long it takes for people
Yeah.
to start seeing benefits.
Right, that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How long does it take? So, I mean, I have seen someone with ulcerative colitis stop bleeding in 10 days, which is pretty amazing.
Wow.
But yeah, she wasn't cured completely, and I've seen people who've been on GAPS for years, but they weren't quite doing it correctly or they were missing a key. And so then working with a coach can really help to sort of just flip that switch and change things up. Um, but generally speaking, Dr. Natasha says 2 years. You've got to give it 2 years. If you don't give it 2 years, you haven't given it the right shot. You haven't tried hard enough. And once you have done it for 2 years, you know, once you get off those breakfast cereals and breads and what I call the opiates of the masses because they're like hardcore drugs because they're quite hard to get off. Once you do get off them for a little while, right? And then you say, oh, I'm just going to have a bit of pizza and a beer. It'll be all right. You might find early stages of healing, having that pizza and beer will knock you back so badly. You'll go, oh my God, why did I eat that? That's given me such a bellyache or diarrhea or constipation or, that's upset me so badly. Why? What was I thinking? Why did I do that? And then it's really easy to say no to the opiates of the masses when that happens. But then there'll come a point about 18 months, maybe 2 years, maybe longer, where you've healed enough that you can have a croissant with jam. And it's lovely. And you go, oh my God, this is like manna from heaven, this croissant. But you wouldn't eat it every day because you know that actually in the long run it's not worth it. You like save it for special occasions, which is where I'm at the moment. I can eat anything I like. But I choose to carry on eating Gap style French cuisine because it's lush, delicious, gives me full power, full energy. I'm 57 years old and I feel like I'm about 28, so why would I go back?
Yeah, I think experiencing that would really motivate you to stay with it, especially if you do have those moments where you try something and you're not quite ready for it and it pushes you back. It's just more and more motivation building.
Yeah,
So you
pain
mentioned,
is a great motivator. Pain.
Mhm. So you mentioned picky eating and like kids like not wanting to eat this way, or that's what at least moms might be thinking when they're starting this. How do you work with those moms other than helping them to have that mindset of my kids are eating new things every day? What are some other strategies that you find helpful? Because I work a lot with mothers who have kids that are on the pickier side of things. So what do you
Yeah.
recommend from a GAPS
So,
approach?
yeah, I don't know. Picky eating, right, should be ringing really big alarm bells. If any mother has a child who is a picky eater, it's not just a phase they're going through. It's not something they're going to outgrow or grow out of. It's something that should be ringing massive alarm bells, and you should immediately address it. It's really, really important. Immediately address the picky eating. And what we need to do is bring in stock. cook everything in stock. If they want to eat rice, you cook the rice in stock. You smother it in good fats. How many good fats can you get into that child's food? How much stock can you, how many soups can you serve? Are they going to eat the soup if you put on some croutons of halloumi or some croutons of crispy bread with butter, but that's their ration? The little croutons of the ration, they have to eat the soup. The soup is full of collagen and gelatin and good fats. The more collagen, gelatin, good fats, and ferments that we can get into the kids, the quicker their microbiome is going to change and the quicker they're going to reject the beige foods that they've been addicted to. Now, you have to, at some point, take all the addictive foods out of the kitchen, but I don't recommend doing that first thing because that's like taking crack cocaine away from an addict and they're going to kick off. They're going to create, they're going to get really upset and they're going to let you know it because they're sugar monsters inside. It's not the kids. This is what you do. The mums need to have a paradigm shift. It's not your fault what's happened. It's to do instant forgiveness for any perceived failings as a parent. Forget it, right? Just forget it. Now you know, you're finding out that this is the way. The real food is the way. And then you have a paradigm shift. It's not your kid you've got the beef with if your kid is behaving, and you're like, they behave so badly, my kid. I hate it. They're not communicating properly. They're out of control. They're grabbing. My kid was like a sugar monster. She would clamp onto my leg if I didn't give her her fix. Like a little banshee monster. She used to frighten me. She used to beat me up if I didn't give her the sugar. But what you need to do is find alternatives within the spectrum of the GAPS meals and GAPS snacks that we can use. So we can mix, for instance, butter with coconut oil, with honey, with egg yolks, and maybe flavor that with some vanilla, and then freeze that into little frozen blocks that are like, or you can put peppermint in it, and it tastes like a mint humbug. It's like a sweetie. You can have those sweeties. You can have as many of those sweeties as you like. We can make some popsicles with milk kefir and egg and honey and other flavorings and, raw dairy ferments like cultured cream. We can make ice creams. You can make salted caramel ice cream. We can make these GAPS foods, and it's a good idea to just spend a few months learning the cooking techniques of how to make yummy things. And then at some point, you're just going to take away all the stuff you know is rubbish and damaging and say, it's okay, we're going to have this instead. And if they kick up, you just say, this is what there is, like Nanny McPhee. You don't offer them a banana instead. You just go, this is what we're all having. You sit down to eat. You hold hands around the table and make a magic circle, and you say, take a deep breath and, thank you for this food. Blessings on the meal. Now, maybe your kids are nonverbal autistic and they're running around and, creating havoc and they won't come to table. It's okay. We're going to give them chicken wings. We're going to give them chicken legs. We're going to give them pork belly. We're going to give them meats to chew on, right? And if they've got sensory perception issues, we're going to blend the meats into meatballs and sausages and patties, and we're going to flavor them with fermented ketchup. We're going to make our own fermented ketchup and condiments and mix honey in it so it tastes sweet. There are ways and means. It's not difficult, but if you've got guidance, it's not difficult. It was difficult for me in the beginning, but if you've got guidance, it's not that difficult. And then you just got to be strong and say, do I want to live with a child who's going to be dependent on me forever? Or do I want to bring up a child, a son or a daughter, who will be strong, resilient, independent, bright, witty, as in they've got their wits about them, that they can function in society, communicate with people correctly, have compassion, kindness, make themselves useful in society? Or am I going to live with a child who needs care the whole time? Because picky eating is the beginning of having a child who's going to need to be looked after for the rest of their lives. Because if it doesn't manifest now, as a picky eater can turn into an anorexic, can turn into a bulimic, can turn into an ADHD, OCD, autistic type, person, which they're desperately trying to normalize at the moment, neurodiversity. And yes, of course, we need to accept everyone exactly as they come. But what we're trying to build here is strong, resilient human beings who are independent and can get out into the world and do their thing, you know. So if your kid is not looking as though they're on that track, are they making friends? Are they communicating with people? Or are they loners? Are they fixated on things? Or they no, let's do gaps. Let's do gaps, you know. Did I answer your question? I forgot what the question was again.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You did. You gave so many different ideas of what we can do as parents if our kids are fussier or more selective with their eating. And I think that last piece there about reminding ourselves why we're doing this, because it can be hard in the moment, in that short term. It can be challenging to change how our kids eat and figure out a whole new approach. But if we know why we're doing it, because we want to raise resilient, healthy kids that are able to care for themselves and have their wits about them as they get older and into adulthood, that why will sustain us.
The other thing is we need to remember that for every GAPS baby, there's a GAPS mama because we pass on our microbiome to the kids. So we might be looking at the kids and going, "What's wrong with you?" But actually, what's wrong with them is was you, if you know what I mean. No judgment, instant forgiveness, but really, anyone who's coming to GAPS needs to do it as a family. The mum needs to be on board, the dad needs to be on board, all the other brothers and sisters are going to be on board. Because actually, when you really look at it, you're not you're not losing out. You're not missing out on anything when you eat this way. You might think, oh, but what about my crisps? It's okay, I've got equivalents. I've got gaps equivalent to crisps and chips. I've got gaps equivalent to everything. And yes, it's going to be a bit like, oh my God, I'm not sure if I like this to begin with. But after a while, your body lets you know, and then your brain starts functioning properly. And then you're like, why did I ever eat Pringles all day long? I can't believe I did that. What was wrong with me? I just was eating pasta, bread, and, pizza all day long. What was wrong with me? That was me 20 years ago, you know. I was so slow. I was so dim-witted at that time. You know, I was so in pain all the time and feeling frustrated and angry at people and angry at myself and was living on a very low vibration at that time. And then when I had my big health crash, my big depression, and this problem with my kids, um, finding gaps and starting to rebuild my body of strong stuff so that my mind can actually start working properly, I'm amazed at how different I feel now at 57 compared to how I was in my 20s. I feel better now than I did all through my 20s, all through my 40s, 30s, and my 40s. It's remarkable. And anyone can do that if they just choose.
Yeah. And through your, like you do the coaching and then you also have the cookery, I believe you called it. Is that where you teach the recipes? Because you've listed off so many foods that sound so good throughout this whole chat. Are these what you teach people in that aspect
I
of your
think,
work?
yeah, I've just changed the way I'm working because Um, I find when I work with people one to one, I get really great results. When people just go to the cookery school and start sort of picking and choosing what they want to look at, I don't get such good results. So I did used to have a two-tier option. You could join the cookery club and you get into the support group. Questions will be answered and you can just watch the videos and take it from there. And that was it was £33 a month, which is about $40 or something. And then the one-to-one coaching is about 240. But what I've done is I've said, look, I'm not going to just let people into the cookery school and do it on their own because it's not really getting the results. So now I say, come and work with me and I'll meet with you on Zoom twice a month to get the ball rolling. And then I'll just give you the cookery school as part of that experience. And that's working much better. And then if people want to, they can actually come and hang out with me in Normandy in northern France, the land of milk and honey, which is it's very rural here and very rustic. And they have great butcher's shops and great crèmerie where you can buy kilos of raw cream and raw milk and raw honey. And the food here is exemplary. So it's a great place to come and learn about real food and appreciate real food. And so I host people for 5 days and straight and feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks and whatever. And they actually stay with me in my home and we chew the cud and talk about their symptoms and they get an experience of what it is to get off the opiates of the masses for 5 days.
That's incredible because it can be daunting to do this on your own. So to have that coaching is really useful. But sometimes we do that, need that immersive experience, right? People go to rehab for drugs. I think we need that for sugars and carbs as well because they are drugs. They affect our brain in a very similar way.
Yeah, because you're a psychologist. Did they teach you about how sugar affects your brain, or have you just researched it yourself?
No, I learned about that after. I don't think we even touched on that during my studies. Not to say that some other people haven't, but that was not part of my education at university.
Yeah, interesting.
And how does it work to become a GAPS practitioner? It sounds like you were using this approach for quite some time before you went and did that training. What is that process like?
I'm not actually a GAPS practitioner. I'm a GAPS coach. So the difference is practitioners need to come from a medical background. So, for instance, you could become a GAPS practitioner because you've got a PhD and you're a doctor, Hillary. You know, if you're an acupuncturist, for instance, or some other kind of nurse or a therapist or something where you have insurance where you can do hands-on therapies and healing work with people, you can become a GAPS practitioner because they talk in that course about contraindications between medications and certain foods. But and so I'm a GAPS coach, which means I'm basically a cookery school teacher. I just teach cookery school. That's my qualification. But I've got to tell you, I've I've learned so much working with people over the last 15 years that I actually know some GAPS practitioners, and they quite often say to me, "Oh, you know more about it than I do, Emma." So the qualification doesn't necessarily matter. I don't think are you getting results? I'm only ever asking people to try to eat different foods. That's all I'm doing. So what could go wrong? Actually, quite a lot can go wrong if you're not careful. Because if they detox too quickly, it can feel really, really rough. So we've got to have some sort of safety measures in place where we're going to absorb the toxins before they start to poison the body again. So that is part of the protocol as well that we work with. So it's just a two. It was a how many months was it? Was it? I forget now. 6 months maybe of online training, and then we had to take on some clients and report, and we had to prepare the foods and video it and send it back and say, are we doing it correctly? And that was my training basically to be a cookery school teacher.
Yeah, it sounds like a great thing, and we need more people working in this area, I think.
Absolutely, we do. Yeah, more the merrier. Yeah.
So, what would you say to a bum who's listening and feeling overwhelmed and just doesn't know where to start?
I'd say don't worry. Everything's going to be okay. You've found the path now. You're just going to put one foot in front of the other until you get there. And the first thing you're going to do is find a nice big saucepan with a lid. And you're going to get a whole chicken. You're going to put it in and you're going to add water, 2 liters or so, cover the bird. And then one onion, one carrot, stick of celery, and some sea salt and a few black peppercorns. Right, it takes 5 minutes to do that. Put it on a simmer and just have it on for an hour and a half until the meat starts to fall off the bone. And drink it like tea. Just drink it like tea. Like have a cup of stock every day. Don't say have a cup of tea, have a cup of stock. That's the start. That's where you start. And anything you're cooking, you use stock. And then you can add certain things to the stock to make it more tasty, more palatable, more easy to digest, more probiotic filled, more fat filled. It depends. But that's basically where you start. And then just look at your protein intake because bodybuilders from the 1970s and 80s and stuff, and even now, obviously, bodybuilders say we need a certain amount of protein every day. And there's an equation you can do to find out how much protein do I need. Dr. Natasha says keep it simple. Just you need at least a piece of protein the size of your hand, minimum every day. Some people say every meal. Bodybuilders will say weigh yourself in pounds, times that by two, and then that will give you how many grams of meat you need to eat. So if I'm 156 pounds, times that by two, 300, around 300 grams, that's about 3 hamburger patties, which is about 3 times the size of your hand. So I mean there are equations, but I think we all need more protein. We've been put off protein by um, the media. Media's been trying to put us off protein for a long time. So go and make friends with your butcher.
Yeah, so starting with the stock and focusing on increasing protein, I think those are two really great places to start. They're doable and they're something that we can work on every day. And it will bring benefit, but it's not going to take up all of our time either.
Exactly, it's quite simple. And then butter, my favorite, butter's so beautiful, so important. Have butter. Eat butter all day long. Eat butter and honey. Eat butter and honey and egg yolks, you know, beautiful. And then let go of the starchy carbs because you don't really need them when you're eating that much fat. You need animal fat. Mother's milk is 50% animal fat by dry weight. Your brain is 50% is fat. Your brain is 50% fat by dry weight. All your nerves are insulated with like the plastic round the wiring of the copper in electrical wiring. All of your nerves are insulated with myelin, which is made of fats. All of your hormones are made of fats. We've been told to eat low fat for such a long time. Need high fat, really, really, really high fat. And never mind about thinking you're going to get fat, just get well, and then your body will find its balance, you know.
Yeah, one of my kids' favorite first foods was just butter, just grabbing the butter and chomping on it. And it's great. It fills them up. It's delicious. So it's easy. It literally is the easiest thing you could feed them.
Yeah, right. My favorite easy baby food, latest baby food, not first baby food, but when they're grabbing things and putting them in their mouths, it's like sardines. Open a tin of sardines. Just chuck it down on the baby thing and let them go for it. It's going to give them their omegas. It's going to give them their calcium, all their minerals, their meat, their protein. They go like, get them into those tastes early, and then they won't be sugar monsters.
And I think often we assume that kids won't like those, but it's shocking. Like my kids, one of their favorite foods are anchovies. And from an early age, I never had to try to get them to eat them. I think if we just allow it, they
Yeah,
will likely, their body knows what they need, especially when they're young. Yeah, and it just makes it easier down the track. So can you tell us a little bit about your book that you have? I see it sitting there.
yeah. This is bagel goggles. Take them off. See the food as medicine. So my daughter came home from a trip to the West Country where they serve scrumpy cider, which is quite potent apple cider, alcoholic, and they didn't have a cooker and she ate bagels the whole week. She just had bagels and cider the whole week after having been a Gapster for the majority of her life. She came back, she looked like death warmed up. She looked terrible, white, face, and her eyes just dull and grey with bags under her eyes. I said, go to bed, and I put the stock pot on. I made some liver pate. I got the milk kefir out. I made a milk kefir eggnog with raw egg yolks and honey. And for the next 4 days, I just fed her up. I fed her with all of this lovely good food. And then about on the fourth day, she came down with rosy cheeks and bright eyes, and she was full of energy. I said, "How you feeling?" She said, "I'm all right now. I've taken off my bagel goggles, mummy." So that was the title of the book. But it's a kind of paradigm shifting recipe. It's a recipe book and it's part biography because I had quite an interesting story. I was an actress originally in a TV show in England here. And then I was a decorative artist, and then I poisoned myself with solvents and pigments in the paints. And then I became a farmer because I knew I needed to find real food that was unadulterated and not poisoned. And then I had a huge battle with the planning people, with the council here in England, because I couldn't live on my own land as a smallholder. And then I lost my land and lost my home and lost my business and lost my marriage all in one fell swoop. And then bounced back because I was resilient and boingy and springy from all of the collagen and gelatin and amino acids that I'm in. And, my brain was in enough of a good space for me to be able to see the reasons why things had happened and to go, it is what it is. I'm just going to do this instead. And so now my life's something different than it was before. But this is basically part biography, part recipe book, part self-help paradigm shifting spell book, because I'm asking people to look at the lenses with which they see the world. Are you seeing the world through bagel goggles? Are you seeing the world through a haze of this kind of opiates of the masses, like I was, feeling drugged and brain fogged? Or are you clear sighted? Can you see what's going on out there? And I look at the spellings and the etymology and the spells that are used in the English language that actually can hinder us from finding our way and our true path. So, very gentle kind of look at the English language and etymology and where words come from and why we say certain things, and just bringing people's awareness to the way words are used, because in the beginning there was the word, and then when you speak the word, so it comes into being because we are the creators. So what kind of life are you creating? What kind of life are we creating if you're brain fogged and addled? If you're you know, basically, I'm asking people to come to their senses, and I'm suggesting ways in which they can come to their senses by taking off their bagel goggles. And, it's full of remedy, that book, full of remedy and solution. And I do highlight and outline some of the problems in our society, but then I come with solutions and remedy to help smooth things over and make you feel good. It's all about being in joy.
We'll
Yeah.
have to read it. It sounds great. It sounds like it, yeah, tackles a lot of different issues. So, yeah, I'll have to read that one. So, can you tell people where they can find you if they're interested in learning more about what you're doing or working with you?
Yeah, I'm at Timeless Cookery. So timelesscookery.com is the website. Timeless Cookery on Instagram, at Timeless Cookery on YouTube, and then I'm also on Facebook, but I'm just Emma Goodwin on Facebook because I tried to do a business page and I got ghost in the machine, and I was like, oh no, never mind. So I'm just Emma Goodwin on Facebook, Fastbook as I call it.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing about GAPS. This is the first time that I've really delved into GAPS specifically. We've talked about gut health in a number of different episodes, but thank you for coming on and talking about this transformative way of eating and living.
You're very welcome, Hilary. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really I hope it helps a lot of people. I hope a lot of people benefit from finding out more about GAPS. It's transformational. Yeah, thank you for having me.